Baking Yesteryear, take one, mark. Hi there, I'm B. Dylan Hollis, cookbook author and baker. Today we are in the kitchen, which means we are going to be baking. We're going to be baking two pies, one from 1939, one of the oldest Penguin Random House cookbooks we could find, and one from 2023. The one from 1939 is called Rock Arbour Pie, and the one from my cookbook is going to be called a mock apple pie. These are two pies that try to conjure the taste of an apple pie without actually using fresh apples. So let's dive in. We're starting with the Rock Arbour Pie, a recipe which I've yet to interact with. And looking at the ingredients list, it's going to be interesting. But we begin with our eggies. We're going to separate the yolks from the whites. The whites are going to go in here, and the yolks are going to go in yonder. Now remember, you can get a bit of whites in your yolk, but you can't get a bit of yolk in your whites. They won't whip up. I just like let the whites come through. Bit by bit. Come on. Perfect. Now, we're going to beat these two separately, but we can reserve these for later on. Okay, for the Rock Arbour Pie, I'm going to call it a competing pie because it's not the recipe that's in my book, so it's a competitor. Our first instruction was to reserve the egg whites for a meringue later, and then we just mix in all of the ingredients in this bowl. And our first one is the yolks of 2 eggs, and we're just going to beat that lightly. It's a lovely sound, isn't it? Okay, next in is 1 cup of sugar.
Try not to make a mess on your carpet. Oh God.
In goes our cup of sugar. I just put it in all at once. This is not going to stay a liquid. It's going to get quite dry. These look like little eggy crystals. So you say, Dylan, in place of apples, what is the apple that's going into this pie? Well, you see it right here. This uses apple sauce. So I'm not quite sure what the texture of this pie is going to be, having a whole bunch of applesauce in there, but I can tell you this much, it's not going to be as nice as my pie, but we need 2 cups of this. And let me tell you, this is a liquid. This is a dry measuring cup. A dry cup and a liquid cup is the same cup. You can measure your liquids with the dry, you can measure your dry with the liquid measures. It really does not matter. And if someone tells you otherwise, you can tell them, well, tell them what you like. Oh, God. That's 1 cup of our applesauce. And we need a 2nd cup of our applesauce. Oh my God, that is perfect. Thank you so much for measuring this perfectly in 2 cups. Ooh, good heavens. I don't know what Rock Arbour is or where Rock Arbour is, but I don't think I want to go there. Now, I'll admit to you that on this recipe, it does not give any sort of steps on how to mix this filling. Typically with baking, if there's no butter, but there is sugar and there are eggs, you would beat together your eggs and your sugar. That's typically the first step, if it isn't beating together sugar and butter. So this is just beating, well, a mess. Next up, we need the juice of a lemon. This is not a lemon, but it is the juice of a lemon in a bottle. We're going to approximate the juice of a lemon. That's a little lemon. That's a medium lemon. That's a lemon.
You little whisk up.
All right, you say, Dylan, what's next? I don't know, it's not my recipe, I'm gonna look. That makes a lot of sense. We need 1/2 cup of seeded raisins. Now you say, Dylan, the raisins don't have seeds in them anymore. Well, seeded was an old school term for seedless. Don't go out looking for raisins with seeds in them. I can tell you they're not fun. But yeah, raisins in an apple pie. That makes perfect sense. Thank you, Rock Arbour.
Oh, I love raisins.
I do. I'm an old man. Raisins and coconuts and peanuts. Ooh. You know, one of my favorite candies is actually just chocolate-covered raisins. So, 1/2 cup.
Not gonna use that. I'm a professional.
1/2 cup. Approximate this. Here you go. And to top it off, we need just a tablespoon of flour. Sifted. I refuse to sift a tablespoon of flour. We're just gonna get ourselves a little tablespoon. What does the addition of a tablespoon of flour do to this? Good luck. Ooh. You know, I could call this many things, but I don't think a pie filling is one of them. But what do I know? Here we have a pie plate. In said pie plate is a pie crust. And into said pie crust goes pie filling. Oh, good heavens. Oh, Lord. Ooh. Little raisins there for solidarity. And now we need to bake this at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's called a moderate oven. And we bake this until the pastry gets brown. That's the only indication. All right, remember those egg whites that we reserved earlier? Me neither. We need to whip it up into a meringue. No sugar, no nothing, just a plain meringue. Here we can see the baked Rock Arbour Pie. It looks a little bit like, I'm gonna say silicone, you know, that which, breast implants are made of. It takes on that nice sheen, sort of a medical sheen. And as you can see, our crust is golden brown. At this point, we would add on some meringue, lower the oven temperature to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and just bake further until that meringue is a golden brown. You're about to watch a masterclass in one destroying a pie. Ooh. Oh, it's a bit of a mess in there. It is, we got half of it. So when it comes to presentation, well, a crime scene comes to mind. But you know what? It smells okay. Make sure we get a good bit of the meringue. Make sure we get some raisins in there. Do we have a raisin? Do we have a taker? Hello. Yeah, with so much applesauce, it's not really congealed. But here we are. I would call that an applesauce pie, but I would also call it good. That's very interesting. These were pies of budgeting. They were attempting to capture an apple pie, capture an apple pie flavor without having to use fresh apples. You didn't have to worry about whether there were apples in your store, didn't have to worry about seasonality. You could have an apple pie or an apple pie related item on your plate. And this does that well. But let me show you how I would do it. So this is the famed mock apple pie, also goes by the name of a fake apple pie, and it is a pie that conjures the taste of apples using nothing more than Ritz crackers, lemon juice, and cream of tartar. With, of course, a few things added in. I'll show you that. We begin by making a syrup. We start with 2 cups of water. Into the water, 2 cups of sugar. Next is a secret ingredient, cream of tartar. Quite a lot, 3 teaspoons of cream of tartar. And this, in combination with the lemon juice, which is to follow, creates an apple pie flavor from magic. 1, 2, 3. Just give this a little mix, just to disperse the cream of tartar within the sugar and water. Then we set this to the boil on high. Once it begins to boil, we reduce the heat to a medium, and we boil for about 20 minutes. On you go! I don't know how this works. Yes! Now our next step is a bit strange. We'll be needing Ritz crackers. That is the brand name for a butter cracker. They are a cracker typically used for snacking. You put cheeses on them, all sorts of, jams and things like this. But now we'll be using it in a pie. We need 40 of them. And instead of me counting these out, there's already 40 here. We'll be crushing them up. You can actually just be a bit of a barbarian, a bit of a caveman, and just... They don't need to be a fine dust. To have some large pieces is ideal. This pie really took off in 1934 when Nabisco released the Ritz cracker. Some mock apple pie recipes actually don't have you crush up the crackers and have them layered delicately like you would find in an apple pie, but I think that's just a bit too extra. Does this look like I'm making an apple pie? It doesn't? Well, we are. Here we have our pie pastry, and we're kind of like, this is more like an arts and crafts recipe than a baking recipe. All we're gonna do is put our crushed crackers in here.
Flatten them out a little bit.
You say, Dylan, you're a madman. I know. With our dry goods out of the way, we have our reduced syrup. Now, of course, before it was all watery, but as you can see, we're going to pour this over. As you can see, it's now quite a thick syrup. Woo. On top of this, we'll be needing a spice. It's one of my favorite spices. Do you know what it is? Cinnamon. Now, I did, of course, include a measurement for cinnamon on the recipe, but we don't pay attention to that. All we do is sprinkle it evenly over this. Cinnamon and apples. It's a match made in heaven. Next up, 3 tablespoons of butter cut to thin pads. Boop. And we just dot this pie with these thin pads. Doesn't need to be covering. This butter will melt. And we are a lover of heterogeneity here. So it's nice to have some bites of your pie with finely crushed crackers and with no butter. And then other bites will have big chunks of crackers and a whole bunch of butter. One needn't have a homogeneous baking experience. Finally, we seal the casket with a top crust. It's called so because it's not on the bottom. Look at this glorious creation. On you go. Now, it does not need to be perfect. A lot of bakers will tell you that you need to have the most perfect looking, perfectly crimped, perfectly trimmed pie crusts, but we live in the real world. The last thing we do is just crimp together the bottom crust and the top crust. Just go all the way around, gently sealing. There are so many fancy methods of doing this, but I find a fork is just right for me. Then in this goes to a 425 degree Fahrenheit oven for 10 minutes before reducing to 350 for about 25 to 30 minutes. Around that mark, we're just looking for the top crust to get a golden brown. Look at this! Look at this! Our mock apple pie, our fake apple pie has a perfect golden sheen on top. And you know what? It smells like apples. More so than apples smell like apples. We're gonna cut into it. Any day with pie is a good day, even if it's a Monday. Gingerly, Hollis. Now, my pie came out as one piece, the other didn't. What am I trying to say? I don't know. Look at that. So if you can see here, you have 3 distinct layers. You have the top crust, you have the filling, which is this gooey caramel apple smelling filling, and then a very distinct bottom crust, unlike our breast implant. Whoa! Honestly, you're gonna have to make this. It is incredible. I'd almost prefer this over an apple pie. I'm not lying to you. Am I saying that just because I have it in my cookbook? Yes, but it's also very good. Now you say, Dylan, I want to make that pie. And I'll tell you, you can make that pie. You can make that pie if you get Baking Yesteryear, the best recipes from the 1900s to the 1980s. There's 101 recipes in here. It's well worth your dosh. And included in those 101 is our mock apple pie. Let me tell you, right now I want to bake 98 of these. Baking Yesteryear is available everywhere books are sold.